Good morning. Welcome to Greener Pastor Ministries International. I am your host, Minister Chulai Searles. Greener Pastor Ministry is brought to you from 190 Hudson Heights, St. Michael's, Barbados. Welcome to our YouTube broadcast. Today, we are going to look back at the Passover Supper, and we are going to tie the Passover Supper to the Lord's Supper. We are going to see the correct way we're supposed to do it, understand why we were supposed to do it, and then from there we are going to speak to what's happening today. Okay, so let's begin. So first we're going to look at the passage that speaks to it. It says this month, right? So it says, and the Lord spoke unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be unto you the beginning of the month, the first month of the year, which is March, April, beginning of spring. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month shall thou take every man a lamb. And if we look at the Hebrew lambs you're seeing now, the Hebrew lamb speaks to one of the flock. It could be a lamb, a sheep, a goat, a young sheep, a young goat. We are going to look at it is supposed to be a sheep. So it's supposed to be a sheep. And what I did was I went to my good friend Co-Pilot and asked Co-Pilot how many people can one adult lamb feed. Let's make it a little bigger that you can see it. Co-Pilot told me an adult lamb typically weighs between 40 to 60 pounds and can serve 6 to 8 people as a main course, assuming a serving size of 6 to 8 ounces. A pound is 16 ounces. Half a pound will be 60 pounds, and we are going to serve each person 8 ounces, and 16 ounces is a pound. Then 120 people can be served from one sheep. If we go on further, if you planning a feast, a large lamb around 60 pounds can serve up to 10 people, while a smaller lamb around 40 pounds may serve 4 to 5 people. This is just eating lamb. Then I look at what about a sheep, and this is to show you how you can get some disparities among AI. An adult sheep typically weighs 100 to 250 pounds and can give 50 to 120 pounds. We take out the skin, take out the stomach, take off the head, separate the head and the hooves. It would weigh anywhere from 50 to 125 pounds. A small sheep weighing about 100 pounds can feed up to 15 people. A medium sheep, 20 to 30 people, and a large sheep, 40 to 50 people. Alright, so if we are talking about feeding a sheep according to Ephesians chapter 11, we are looking at what Co-Pilot said of a sheep. We consider a lamb is a sheep about 100 pounds, and it should be able to feed at least 15 to 20 people. Let's go back to the passage and let's see what the passage says. Remember, if you're reading the story of Moses, it was Moses' era, Miriam, her father, and her mother. Those were 5 persons that make up a family. So if you look at Moses' family when he was born, it was Miriam, Aaron, his father, his mother, and Moses, the baby, is 5 persons. That is considered a small family. Some families may have 15 people. So if a family has 5 people, one lamb is too much for that one family. And if there are 3 families with 5 persons each, then all 3 families can gather at one house and they can share one lamb. Let's see now if we see that in text. If the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbors next to his house take it in accordance to the number of the souls. Every man, according to his kidney, shall make your count for the lamb. I'm going to switch it to NIV so that we can see in new stuff. It says, take a lamb, one from each household, and if the household is too small for a whole lamb, they must share one with their nearest neighbor, having taken into account the number of people therein. You are to determine the amount of lamb needed in accordance with what each person will eat. The animal you must choose must be a year-old male without defects. Okay. How I am asking AI, how much can a 1-year-old lamb feed? A 1-year-old lamb is typically 80 to 120 pounds. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to open this. I'm going to insert a blank page. I'm going to insert a blank page. I'm going to paste the information. I believe you can read it now. A 1-year-old lamb typically weighs 80 to 120 pounds. Is what AI is telling me, depend on the breed and diet. As percentage, I expect 50% of that weight to be usual meat. A small lamb can feed 8 to 12 people. Medium lamb, 12 to 16, and a larger lamb, 16 to 20 people. That's AI for you. So if you look at families with 5 to 8 persons, 1 lamb is too much for them. So therefore, what you will do is you will invite the neighbors over who also have small family, and you all will take part in this feast. Now you can choose a sheep or goat. You can choose a sheep or a goat that is 1 year old, and it must be a male, 1 year old sheep or goat. You got to take good care of them until the 14th day of the month. Let's see if I can bring up a calendar. So let's say that the first year of the month is April, normally when spring starts. Sorry you're seeing some information here, but that's okay. That's okay. It's nothing that in public. So you gotta take care of that sheep until the 14th day of the month. And on the 14th day of the month, you will then execute this sheep. Man, all the people in the community, Israel must slaughter them at twilight when the sun going down. Then they must take some of the blood and put it on the side top of the door frames, and how they must eat the lamb. That is first Passover. So we don't have to smear the blood on the doorpost anymore. The same night they are to eat the meat roasted over a fire, along with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. So what you gotta do is, let's go through the Passover Supper. A lamb or a goat, 1 year old male. You must take it and feed it and make sure that it has no bruises, no, it's not sick, no, it have broken bones for 14 days in April. Because April is normally the first year on the Jewish calendar, when spring begins is when the year really starts, not January. And on the 14th day of April, you take this lamb on the evening, you slaughter it. We don't have to submerge the blood anymore. You take the meat and you cook it over fire, and then you prepare it, cut it up to pieces. You have bitter herbs, and you have bread made without yeast. Without yeast, without egg, without baking powder. Nothing that will cause it to rise. No rising agent. I thought for nutrition, so you know, egg, baking powder, baking soda, and yeast are all rising agent. Now, I'm going to use yeast because the word of God says yeast, so no yeast. Do not eat the meat raw or cooked in water. But roast it over the fire, head, legs, and inner parts. So you cut the lamb flat. You cut the lamb in such a way that it comes flat. And then you put it over the fire that inside could cut, outside could cut, so you probably turn it. And then all the parts, the heads and the inner parts, must also be in the fire cooking. After it's cooked right through, you start to eat. This is how you are to eat it. Now I'm going to put verse 11 here. I'm going to use this. This allows me to have parallel verses. King James, New American Standard, New International Version, and the Hebrew. Right? But we're going to get the Hebrew today. We're going to just look at the King James and NIV. King James, and thou shalt eat it with thy loins girdle and your shoes on your feet and your staff on your hands, and ye shall eat it in here, and it's the Lord Passover. It's the Lord Passover. Right? Now, let me go a little further down in the passage. And when you enter the land that the Lord will give you as he promised, observing this ceremony. And when your children ask you what does this ceremony means to you, tell them it is the Passover sacrifice of the Lord who passed over the houses of Israel. So it's a memorial of God bringing Israel out of the land of Egypt. And the night that Jesus was crucified, he did the same ceremony, but he made a slight change to it. Let's see if we can find it in St. John. I can use 1 Corinthians 11. I'm going to use 1 Corinthians 11 because it has more direct there. No. It says, when you come together, therefore, in one place, this is not to eat the Lord's Supper. For in eating, everyone taketh before others his own supper. One is hungry, the other is drunken. Alright, we look at that verse there. They're coming to eat the Lord's Supper. Let's go back now to Exodus. You see, the Passover sacrifice to the Lord. Therefore, the Lord's Supper is the Passover Supper. Right? The same thing that Jesus instituted is exactly what we read in Exodus. There's no difference to the two. Both of them are done the same way. Let's go back now to 1 Corinthians 11. How we can see the same thing. And we make a little wide up, we see more verses. One is hungry and the other is drunken. In other words, what happened here? And I'm going to explain everything based on what happened. Remember when we read Exodus, there are going to be people who may not have sheep. Their families are too small. Yours might be too large, and you can got some leftover meat from the sheep and stuff. So invite the smaller families to your house, and you all will take part in the supper together. That is what we read earlier in Exodus. So what was happening at Corinth is when they do the same Lord's Supper, when they can choose to not to remember Israel being out of Egypt, but Christ's death, resurrection, and ascension, it's still being done the same way, with lamb, with bitter herbs, and with unleavened bread, as well as with wine. That is why, when it said wine, those who brought the food got first choice to pick the food, to pick for supper, eat what they want till the belly's full, and drink wine till they're drunk. For in eating everyone taketh before others his own supper, and one is hungry and the other is drunken. Let's bring this into NIV. While as you eat, each of you go ahead without waiting for anybody else. One remains hungry and the other gets drunk. He said to them, do you not have homes to eat and drink in? Or do you despise the church of God and humiliate those who have nothing? What shall I say to you? Shall I praise you for this? Certainly not. So I'm going to put verse 22 here. I'm going to press this to parallel. Can you say, have you not houses to eat and to drink in? Or despise ye the church of God as shame that I have not? What shall I say to you? Shall I praise you in this? I praise you not. And you have the NIV here. Right. Again, it was the same thing. It was lamb, it was bread, it was wine, it was bitter herbs. It's a meal. That's why Paul says, if you want to eat, when we come together to do this thing, it is not for you to get a belly full. It's to take part in the Passover Supper to commemorate the death, the resurrection, and the ascension of Jesus Christ. That's what Paul is saying in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Let's look at it again. I received the Lord what I also pass on to you, that Jesus Christ on the night when he had betrayed took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, this is my body which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me. And the same way after the supper, he took the cup and said, this is the cup of the New Testament of my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me. For whosoever eats and drinketh, and who eats it but drinks the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. Good. And in our worthy part. Right? I'm going to do our worthy part a little later. So, if we go back to Exodus chapter 11. Are you 12? 12. Let's look at it. I have it in NIV. Celebrate the feast of the unleavened bread, because it is this very day that I brought your division out of Egypt. Celebrate it as the last audience for the generation to come. In the first verse, I said, there's something when you're supposed to say, when you get in the land. And when you try to ask what does this ceremony mean, this is the Passover sacrifice to the Lord who passed over the houses of Israel in Egypt. Good. That's what we have to tell the people. So every time before Christ came, died, and ascended, every time before when you kept the Lord's Supper or the Passover Supper, this is what you will say. You will say this. You will say this part here in purple. Now, in the New Testament, we are doing the same service. First Corinthians chapter 11. But we say something different. That's all you're doing. In Exodus, you're taught, when you're doing this service, you are to talk about how God delivered Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, the night of the Passover, how the Passover angels fall, and those they had the blood on the lintel posts of the doors. Those people were killed. The firstborn male was killed. He explained that to your children when we are doing this ceremony. However, in the New Testament now, at the night when they did it, which was the 14th day of the month, when they were starting the feast of the unleavened bread, you would remember Israel, but now he's telling the church, do the same thing, do the very same thing, but rather than doing it to remember how God brought Israel out of Egypt, do it to remember my death, which brings salvation unto you. And he's talking about the bread and the wine that you will eat in this ceremony to represent my body and my blood being shed for you. Right? That's what it's all about. Now, what happened in our churches? I think that I will show you a video to explain this here to you. Let me get the video. I have to mute my microphone so you all can hear.
Conquering the city of Rome at the Battle of Milvian Bridge, he actually refused to offer the usual sacrifices to the pagan gods. And he even granted the Lateran Palace to the Roman bishop, who essentially had been living in a shack on the other side of the Tiber River. This was a really pivotal moment in the history of Western Christianity. But simply declaring the empire to be Christian doesn't magically make it so. Most of Constantine's subjects continued life with their pagan beliefs. And so in the decades and centuries that followed, all kinds of pagan customs slowly made their way into the church. Like December 25, the date we still use to celebrate the birth of Christ. We actually borrowed that date from pagan Roman festivals that were tied to the winter solstice.
Oh, I may have spoken a lot after the video. My apologies. I will have snipped out between the video and not able to cut that out. So what I'm talking about is that the amount of sheep that people have. And I was saying that in Barbados, most people, your parents would have kept the most 10 sheep, if so much. We have farmers who farm sheep in Barbados, blackbelly sheep, who got as much as 100 to 200 sheep. And I was trying to show you from the text that Job had 7,000 sheep. And I was trying to show you from the text that Jacob gave Esau a large amount of sheep, goats, and horses as a means of recompense for the feud between two, hoping that it will fizzle out the anguish between them. When we read the story in Genesis chapter 32 or 33, you would have seen that Esau embraced his brother Edom as he further called from there. Esau was changed to Edom, and Jacob lived in the land. But the story was passed from generation to generation of what happened between them. And further on now in the Bible, you have issues between the Edomites and Israelites due to this historical event between Esau and Jacob when they were much younger. But the point in my fact is the Catholics could have used lamb in the Passover. I do not know why they decided not to use lamb. I know in one of the pagan worship the idols, unleavened bread and wine is used. offering sacrifices to idols. And let's see if we can find about food being offered to idols. And the spirit of God always brings to my mind. Now, if we read this passage that I have highlighted very carefully, the meat and the wine which were given to them was first offered to idols and given to them to eat. And because Daniel and them were from the prince of Enoch and they wanted to defile themselves, they would not take part in food offered to idols. And as I showed you in the video earlier, a lot of pagan practices, whether they went to full with the law, whether they only took part of the sacrifice, the bread and the wine, and the way how they are doing it, they do it the same way, similar. It looks similar. I always believe in the complete thing: the lamb, the bitter herbs, the bread, and the wine. And here's how I believe it should be done in churches. Sorry folks, no lamb stew. Let's look at the church. It was a member of Mount Hermon Church. Mount Hermon Church has about 50 people in it. That would require at least 2 lambs. Am I correct? Yes, 120-pound lamb will feed 20 people. I will say 2 lambs, 2 larger lambs. The Indians hold Ramadan, and in Ramadan they use lamb. They use unleavened bread. They use wine. They have it the same way as the Passover. Yes, they do. But Mount Hermon Church could have prepared 2 lambs once a year in April. 2 lambs. Then we members can go with a plate, take out a portion of lamb, bitter herbs, a piece of unleavened bread, and we could take a glass of wine with us. You don't take, as Paul said for Corinthians 11, enough to fill your belly. You just take enough to eat, to drink. Before we begin to enjoy the lamb with the bitter herbs, we will do the body and the blood, because in Exodus you are to tell the people in the household what happened in Egypt and how God brought them out and what he did on that night. And now Christ said, now rather than remembering how God brought Israel out of Egypt that night, you are to talk about the night that Christ was betrayed, the night that Christ was convicted to be crucified, how he was crucified, died, and raised again, and how his blood was shed. And rather than talking about how the angel passed over Egypt and all the places with the blood, he didn't kill the firstborn, he killed the firstborn of the Egyptians, you are to talk about the death and resurrection of Christ. That's the difference. After you do that, you continue on to finish eat the lamb, the bitter herbs, and the bread. Now here is the significance of these things. The reason for bitter herbs was to remind you of the bitterness that Israel suffered the last 80 plus years in Israel. The bitter herbs is to remind you of your sin and your past lives before you accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. That is what the bitter herbs is supposed to remind you of. The lamb and the bread is supposed to help remove the effects on your palate of the bitterness of the bitter herbs. The lamb signifies the sacrifice that was made for you. The lamb or the goat was, the lamb mainly was used as a sacrifice for the atonement of sin. Eating the lamb reminds you of Christ's atonement of sin. Eating the bread is called the bread of life. The manna is called the bread of life. The new life that Christ has given to you. The wine represents the power of Jesus' blood. Wine has two properties: cleansing power, preserving power. Wine has the ability to disinfect. The story of the Good Samaritan, we like to call it Good Samaritan. The story of Samaritan and the Jew who was beaten nearly to death by robbers. We see that the Samaritan cleaned the cuts with wine and then covered the cuts with oil. That oil will have been thick close to what we call an ointment, because when you use BNT ointment to cover a cut, that is putting a protection layer over the cut to prevent anything from getting in to infect the cut. But the alcoholic wine or white rum or anything can be used to disinfect and clean a cut. That is the cleansing power of the wine or the rum or the rubbing alcohol or white rum. Jesus' blood has the cleansing power to clean you from sin and the guilt of sin. When we make in Barbados something called grape cake, fruit cake, we add wine. Some people add white rum. We add white rum for learn them and grape cake wine. Or some people add a Heineken. Some people add white rum. The objective of the cake is not for you to consume alcoholic beverages, and even if you eat it, you're not being an alcoholic. The Bible speaks against the abuse of alcohol. The Bible never spoke against drinking alcohol. Let me get that straight. I can do a whole video on that. The Bible never speaks against drinking alcohol. The Bible always speaks about the abuse. So when you see here that the wine makes you a mocker, anybody knows about drink too much alcohol, get drunk, the foolishness is free from them, and you make a mockery. You look funny, you look sporty, you look joke, people laugh at you. All your business you talk out. That's what that verse is talking about. So the alcohol is really used to preserve the cake. For those who don't know, that are passed down from Europe, because in harsh winter, you don't have, even if you have a fire, it may still be difficult to use something warm. I went to England in December sometime, and I went in my kitchen to make breakfast. And I can share this here with people who live in overseas to understand. In most places, you do not put a heater in the kitchen because your stove has a gas pilot with oil producing heat. You don't spend a lot of time in the kitchen, or you're supposed to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. It is not a hangout place. Therefore, most of the time you will keep your living room a little warm and your bedrooms very warm. Kitchen is not that warm. So the kitchen is one of the colder places in the house. So yeah, my aunt's house, like in Barbados, you make your tea and put it warm so it's hot. You fry your eggs and you make your breakfast. You know, by the time I done frying my eggs and gone and my tea cold, just the microwave and warm it up, put it on the table, can come back cold. The tea lost its heat faster in the winter than in Barbados that hot. Here you have a cup of tea. After about 40 minutes into this video, according to the timer planning program, after an hour, my tea cold. But if I did make that tea just start breaking up here from downstairs and leave it there, it will still got warmth in it. The tea is cold. So in winter, before we had these modern technologies to heat our homes, you gather around the fire, but food get cold faster. So what you do is you make things to last you through winter. You preserve meats in salt, you preserve fruits in wine, you preserve things in oil, and you use those things during the winter where you don't have to heat them, cook them. So you eat a piece of the cake preserved in alcohol. Alcohol is useful in very cold countries. There's a country that has minus 70 degrees in the winter. People live there because when you sip a little bit of brandy or gin or white rum, it begins to react with these things in your stomach, and the heat is desired, and heat starts to permeate out of your body. So if you have a jacket on and your stuff and don't still feel cold, and you got a little sip, so the body take a little sip and you carry it back down, that heat helps generate heat in your body, help keep you warm in the winter. Those are people who have to travel distances in the winter. However, I do not encourage, I want to make it clear, I do not encourage social drinking. I do not encourage alcohol, like you would drink a soda or you would drink a juice. I do not encourage you to drink like that. If you go to a wedding and you're toasted with wine, fine. But you shouldn't be really coming home from work and drinking a glass of wine or drinking a glass of rum. But it's not a thing, it's up to you. Right? I can deal with cultural norms in another video, and Christian cultural norms and how the cultural norms we adopt and really meant to follow God, but more the cultural norms of the church were more controlled. In fact, there's no sin in drinking alcohol, but I don't encourage you to abuse it. So the wine, the unleavened bread, what you just eat the unleavened bread and the wine, and all the bitter herbs. Something bitter that you can eat. Thyme, parsley, marjoram, and the other herbs that are bitter that was available then too. So why didn't the Catholic Church let you use bitter herbs to bread and the wine? They main worry about the lamb. You can do the lamb. They may do the lamb. Why not the bitter herbs? Why not incorporate bitter herbs into the unleavened bread? Why are Pentecostal churches using a wafer that you don't know what's in it? Why are we saying we are Bible believers and we practicing the word of God and we still practicing things in the Catholic Church? Done away the Catholic Church. I want to be able to go and visit a church. One church in Barbados. One church in Barbados has practiced the Passover the way how Exodus said. But said what they said in 1 Corinthians 11. One church. But they did it in the form of a lamb stew. God also don't boil it. God also do it over stuff. There will come a time when Green Apostle Ministries will be inviting you to events. And one of the things I want to do in April is that Passover Supper the right way. We're going to have lamb, we're going to have bitter herbs, we're going to have the bread, we're going to have the wine. People do that party service first, and afterwards, we done the service, you can go and add some macaroni pie and rice. I got a plan for that. I can take that time to buy two sheep. There's going to be a cost, and I invite you, and we're going to do that Passover Supper at time in April. You're saying, why April? The truth matter of fact is the actual Jewish year starts at the beginning of spring. Spring is normally end of March, early April. So that's why I said the beginning of the actual year is April, Jewish year is April, and therefore God said in Exodus the first month of the year, therefore April is the time to do it. Right? I'm not copying the Catholics. Catholics were smart. You do some things according to the biblical text, but then we add everything to it. I taking out what they add, I don't know that. So we're gonna have a time where I'm gonna invite you to actual Lord's Supper service according to Exodus. You'll have our sermons first, and everybody will take part in it. Now I'm gonna say this here to you. The unworthy part, even unworthy, talks about the attitude of the people when they were doing it in Corinth. It's a memorial. It is not something that you're supposed to, oh, I live in a man, I don't believe in God, so I should eat it. That's up to you. Oh, I say before I come here, ask God for forgiveness, or His partner to forgive you. You do this to remember the salvation God through Jesus Christ provided for you. Nothing you have done in the past can merit you deserving salvation from Christ. Nothing. You do it, remember He provides salvation for you. Even after you're saved, you can still got the advocate through Jesus Christ to be forgiven for your sin. No sin is too great for God to forgive. No person who tries to live for Christ who falls, God can't forgive. God will forgive you. He forgave Moses when he sang. Abraham, when he was alkaline, He forgave Abraham. He forgave Isaac. He forgave Jacob. He forgave Joshua. When Joshua accused God of bringing Israel to the last to kill them. Go on reading in Joshua. When David fornicated with a man's wife, they set the good and sweet between two of them. She pregnant. He want to put it upon she husband. He child upon she husband. It is his. And when the man want gun to his wife, he get killed to marry the wife. But God still forgive him and said David is a man after my own heart. The foolishness that Job start telling God, God has to tell you where you is to tell the wave to come here and go down further. You to put the star in the sky. Men that serve God fell too. Men that first God did things that God would pleased with too. But salvation in that time was still offered to them according to Hebrews 11. The elders obtained a good before because they had faith in God. God is willing to forgive you when you fall. So when you come to the Lord's Supper, greeting part ministry is doing, take part, because it's a memorial for what Christ has done for all of us. It's nothing to do with your condition. You and God will deal with that. It has nothing to do with me and my preaching. It is doing with you and God. My objective is to open up your minds to study His Word and to build a relationship with Him. I am concerned you and God will deal with your situation, because you can answer to God for what you have done in your body, and I will answer to God for what I have done in my body. I am not going to answer to God for you. I can answer to God for what I am saying to you. If I am saying to you what is wrong and misleading, I have to answer to God for that. But you have to answer to God for what you do. So your issues with God, you deal with that. But if I invite you to the Lord's Supper, me doing it the right way, come and take part and to remember what Christ did for you. When you go to your church and they're taking you away a funny little snap glass, of grape juice, it can't heal you. You don't need a ticket to be healed. Well, in Acts chapter 3 or 4, where David healed the man in Gibeon, it is by faith the man was healed. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. If you're going to God, believe He can give you the healing. So this thing that people believe, oh, when I drink the wine, the grape juice, and eat the bread, I can get the pot. What the facts? Look, There was a prophet named Elisha. Elisha graduated from the school of the prophets. Knew God called him to be a prophet. They not went around telling everybody, I am going to be a prophet. They not went in the temple and says, God has prophesied about my life, I am going to be a prophet. He went back home to farming and waited on the call of God on his life to be a prophet. So when Elijah tell him God call you, he just tell Elijah, alright, let me just go and kill my oxen and celebrate the calling of my family, and then come and follow you. The man then went round the place with no sign saying God called he. He got some good when God ready, he will call me. Gone back to a normal job, living the life, shining the light. That's all you're supposed to do. Oh God. And people getting the power and speaking in tongues and all sorts of jazz in the church. The little one they do nothing to you. God can hear you in the church. God can hear you at the bus stop. God can hear you at work. God can hear you from the airplane. God can hear you in your bedroom. God is no respect of a person. God ain't got a special place to do his miracles. God can do it any place, anytime, anywhere, whenever he feel like, cause he is God. The fact is, walking in truth and walking in light is the most important thing for you to understand. To be humble and wait for God to use you. And I'm going to speak about another passage. You know, God was speaking to Jeremiah. I know the plans I have for you, the plans are good. The plans are this and the plans are that. And I knew you from your mother's womb and all these things. God was trying to motivate Jeremiah into walking into his calling. And he was saying these things to Jeremiah to encourage Jeremiah to get into the walking that I want you to. I brought you in this world for the purpose I am calling you to do now. That's what God was saying. Yeah, God got a purpose for you. But you are not Jeremiah, you're not Moses, you're not Abraham, you're not Isaac, you're not Jacob, you're not Jesus Christ. God got a unique plan for you. And because of Jesus died, he showed his good intentions for you. It's true. But he ain't only show his good intentions for you. Everybody, for God so loved this world, they give it only because of that. Whosoever believe in him, not only me nor you. Every living person alive on the face of the earth, if they believe in Jesus Christ, they will be saved. So the plans that God got for me is not to go to hell. Everybody. But unique circumstances is for unique people for God to put his hands upon. And when God is telling a man, I choose you to do a unique task, he is speaking to you. That how to use it in church. That nonsense. That nonsense. It is that God has a plan for you that different to the plan for me. It's different to my former pastor's plan, my wife's plan, my stepchildren, my son, my manager, my director, you got different things for them to do. Everybody got different things to do. Everybody got the same thing to do. Spread the word if you accept God. But only one Mary can born Jesus Christ. Only one Moses can bring Israel out of Egypt. Only one Abraham can be the father of all nations. So everything is applicable to everybody. Understand that. Good. Now let's conclude what I've done today. I've gone over the Lord's Supper, the Passover Supper, Lord's Supper, same thing. The Lord should do this in remembrance of me. Remember what I've done for you in Egypt. Remember how I did what I did on that night. How I bring you out. Tell it to your children. So generation after generation is supposed to do this thing once a month on the 14th day of the first month of the year. Not the 14th of January, the 14th of April, which is the first year in the Jewish calendar. Good. It consists of a lamb a year old as a male, or goat a year old as a male, bitter herbs, unleavened bread, and wine. And if the lamb is too much for you and your family at the time, you can invite the neighbors with small family. We can offer one lamb, should be able to feed according to co-pilot, 120-pound lamb should be able to feed 20 people. Enough to put on a plate with bread, with herbs, and with the wine to give somebody something to celebrate the Passover. So if you're going to do it for 50 people, 2 lambs should be enough. If you're going to do it for 100 people, 4 lambs should be enough. 3 might be enough. Because pastor don't come to fill your belly. It's a once a year thing and not a once a month thing. Offering to others were done regularly. God made Israel do things once a year for a reason. So that that Christianity don't go follow a pattern to idol worship once a year. If you want to remember Christ's death and resurrection all during the year, nothing wrong with it. You're not committing a sin. It's a good thing to do. If you want to continue to be a part of the wafer and the grape, snap a grape juice in church, it's not a problem. It's not a sin. But at least once a year, your local church should have the lamb, should have the bitter herbs, should have the unleavened bread and the wine, and all grape juice, because some people don't want to drink alcohol, and should take through that service. And maybe after you've done that part of the service, some macaroni pie, rice and peas, coleslaw, to add with the lamb, because you're only going to use a piece of the bread and sip a little bit of the wine. You still got lamb, bit of herbs, bread there. So add some macaroni pie and some peas to it. Well, in the Passover, there was no additional things to the meal. You could choose just the lamb and go along home and eat at home like pasta. When you get home, have your rice and peas and macaroni pie or whatever when you go home. Or you could decide after we do that party service, we will have a celebration, food and fellowship, and add food if you want to. Nothing wrong with that. But we should do once a year the Lord's Supper exactly how it was asked to be done in Exodus chapter 12. Exactly. Alright. God bless you this morning. In Jesus' name. Now, if you want to get in contact with me, here is my contact information. You can get me on WhatsApp using 231-1364. If you, after hearing this video, I have a video, I can try to have this video show up at the end of this broadcast, which I speak about it last week. I'm giving more clarity because somebody was saying they got the course, so I'm giving more clarity. Or if you think I am wrong, contact me via WhatsApp. We will have a chat. You can tell me everything you want to tell me. I will listen to you, you listen to me, and we can grow together. Steel sharpening steel. You will see where I'm right, and then you can show me where I'm wrong. So contact me via email or via WhatsApp with this number, God bless you in Jesus' name. Thank you for watching our video. Leave a comment at the bottom of our video. If you like our video, press like, share our video with a friend or relative, subscribe to the channel, press this for notification. Thank you for watching Greener Pastor Ministry.